Hi, my name is Carmen, and I am an early childhood special education teacher, a life and ADHD coach, and I'm the host of this podcast, Authentically ADHD. I created this podcast to help anyone wondering if they have ADHD, people who have been diagnosed for a while and want some more support and community. I'm here to bring you the latest research on ADHD and neurodiversities while we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of ADHD. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, my friend, and welcome back to the podcast. I just want to kind of insert this here. It's just a little please and thank you. I've been testing out different ways that my microphone can go. So if you could comment on different episodes and let me know if the sound is better, the same, worse, that would be so much appreciated. So anyways, how have you been? How was your week? It's been bittersweet around here. It's the end of the year and it's bittersweet as always. It's like you build up this little family throughout the year and then you have to say goodbye. It's summer though, so I'm excited about that. And today's topic was actually inspired by a client's experience with being diagnosed, but still not truly believing that they had ADHD. Okay, like not until the actual, medication worked for this client did they believe that they actually had ADHD. So, today's topic is imposter syndrome. I'm not going to lie, it took me a while to research imposter syndrome because it does come up in neurotypical lives as well, but it's much more prevalent in the neurodivergent and ADHD and autism world. So, we're going to talk about why ADHDers tend to feel like frauds in our careers, in our school and work achievements, in our relationships, and even in the diagnosis itself. Well, so we're also going to talk about why we're more prone to imposter syndrome, what it is, and how we can kind of start to get out of this awful mindset that makes us feel like a complete fraud. So I really hope that you're ready because I am so ready. Let's get started. Speaking of extra supports, I just wanted to tell you all that I've updated my Patreon page to include all of the resources that I've really ever made to be held in one place. Just head to my show notes. The VIP members do get a little extra, but you can also purchase like my brand new Ultimate ADHD Journal and Planner, which I've been using for the past year. That has worked. Nothing is priced over $10, and everything is at least 50 to 100 pages that you can download and print. You can get it binded and sent to you, or you can just read it off your screen and use notebook paper. So if you want or need any type of that kind of extra support, just head to my show notes and click the Patreon link to join. I hope to see you in there. So, according to the Oxford Dictionary, imposter syndrome is the persistent inability to believe one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own effort or skill. So it's basically chronic self-doubt and negative thought loops leading to someone not believing that they actually achieved what they actually have achieved. Usually it's attributed to low self-esteem, lack of self-awareness, and lack of just believing in oneself. people with ADHD are more prone to fall into this imposter syndrome, especially when diagnosed later in life because of the trauma and the negative feedback we received as we grow up being neurodiverse in a neurotypical world. We were told so many things that we internalized as we grew up that our identity, it just became a part of it, right? So the identity that we have actually isn't ours. It's made up from, and it's um, it's made up from the thoughts that are from other people, leading us to even doubting the late diagnosis of ADHD when we get diagnosed later in life. We are more prone to it because of our low self-awareness and usually low self-esteem and lack of identity. We also believe that we never reach our full potential. Again, something we've probably all been told our whole lives. So instead, we attribute this success that we have with luck, other people, and happenstance, rather than giving ourselves any of the credit. Here's the thing. We lived so long being told that we needed to try harder, that we weren't following, the neurotypical way, and that we didn't live up to our full potential. We were so smart and we could do so much. And basically that we were just being lazy, that we were crazy, dramatic, flaky, messy, etc. So when we are diagnosed and treated and given the tools to be successful, we can't always believe that we are responsible for these successes and our achievements, because it does not match what we were told throughout our entire lives beforehand. We are neurodiverse, so we also do things differently due to the differences in our brain. That can involve bullying and isolation with our peers, leading to helplessness and a sense of loneliness within difference. So being different and lonely, and it leads to a really, really harsh sense of helplessness and aloneness. So this makes a lot of sense, actually, because throughout life, diagnosed or not, we underachieve and are rejected at a much higher potential and rate than our neurotypical peers. So when we do experience achievement, it's incredibly unfamiliar to our brain, causing cognitive dissonance, which is something we are already deficient in, that cognitive flexibility. We have a low capacity to that cognitive flexibility. So when we experience the achievement, it's very unfamiliar. Our brain does not like it. So we experience imposter syndrome. When we experience imposter syndrome, it is truly made up of perfectionism, anxiety, and procrastination. Think about that for a second. Perfectionism, anxiety, and procrastination make up imposter syndrome. I'm going to get to kind of how that goes a little later in the episode, but if you have been in the ADHD space for a little while, you may recognize these phrases. Perfectionism here is our lack of belief in ourselves, so we redo, fix, or procrastinating completing big projects or starting big projects because we don't believe that we can do it right, aka perfect. If you didn't know, ADHDers are so much more likely to suffer from comorbid disorders such as anxiety, depression, and CPTSD. Imposter syndrome, which is driven by anxiety and perfectionism, which both correlate with ADHD. The anxiety keeps us stuck, and so does the perfectionism. I also found in my research that ADHD has a significantly higher correlation with job loss, job change, and termination from jobs. This adds to our lack of belief in ourselves and in the experience of imposter syndrome in the workplace. ADHD also has a very big impact on learning, especially adult learning and any transitions to higher learning. So from 8th grade to high school, from high school to college, from associates to a bachelor's to a master's, etc., etc. Even when we do make it through education, get the job we want, or start the career, we are still expected to live and work as neurotypical people, but we're still neurodiverse. And when we are diagnosed and or educated about ADHD later in life, it leads to ADHDers not being able to build self-trust, identity, and self-worth, and getting to know and express our true, authentic selves. Hey there, ADHD. I see you. And if you're looking for some more support for yourself, your children, or both, my summer one-on-one coaching program is officially open. It's a program I built last summer as a summer boot camp type thing, and it'll teach you how to work with your brain instead of fighting against it, learning how to support yourself and your family in a self-loving and self-trusting way. It'll teach you how to do this through compassion and self-awareness. If you're interested, sign up through the link in the show notes. Keep being authentic, my friend. Now, back to the show. So, this also involves adult learning theory as well. In my research, I found that transformative learning, which is learning through one's own experiences and different perspectives, is not condoned by the researchers because it's too general, or it's too individualized, and it doesn't lend to the general population. I believe this is a big reason that people with neurodiverse brains tend to not go to college or drop out before they finish, adding to feeling like a fraud later. Something else I found in my research were this blogger had created this 4 Ps of imposter syndrome. This is what she identified it as. And the way I see it, they kind of build on each other. So the first one is people pleasing, having a lack of boundaries, not charging what we are worth, and doing more for others than for ourselves. The second one was perfectionism, the getting ready to get ready, or editing something to death because it's just not quite right. And we want it to be perfect, basically. And then procrastination is next. And some of us end up engaging in procrastination at this point, dancing around the actual priority tasks. Then they don't get done until the last minute. This is just kind of how our brains work sometimes. And all of that leading to project paralysis. This happens when the anxiety, procrastination, and perfectionism lead to an overwhelm that causes our brains to be unable to do the task at hand. This 4 Ps approach, going through it, will lead down a path of overwork, burnout, and or self-sabotage. This is somewhat because of growing up in a undiagnosed household or an undiagnosed environment. We really only know that part of life and that way of living. But because of the negative stereotypes and stigmatized characteristics, such as being lazy, unmotivated, messy, distracted, flaky, etc., those reasons and others, they contribute to why someone may experience imposter syndrome when being diagnosed with ADHD. We also don't believe it could be true because we don't want to identify with those negative stereotypes. We see ADHD as it's presented in our lives, but we don't have a true education around it. We believe we are high achievers, so there's no way we could have it, which that's false, by the way. We don't feel ADHD enough, meaning you qualify for the diagnosis, but you don't feel that you experience enough symptoms, or you don't feel them to the degree that makes them ADHD symptoms that impact your life. So you just categorize them as character flaws. Also, as women, we are better at masking our symptoms and compensating for them. So we can't actually believe cognitively that ADHD is the reason. Some other factors that affect imposter syndrome are identity and diagnosis, our own personal ADHD profile, how much we understand neurodivergence and ADHD, how much we actually know about ADHD and its true symptoms, our emotional understanding of ourselves and others, system issues such as hidden costs and stereotypes, bullying, isolation, depression, and anxiety, professionalism, conformity, and how we communicate, surviving through life, peer interaction, social media, and teacher-parent feedback throughout our lives. There is a lot more that I could add to the feeling like a fraud. I mean, I felt like a fraud for the entire first year that I did this podcast, and for the first 2 to 5 years that I was teaching, or that I have been teaching. And when I started coaching, I felt like a fraud. It's one of those things that we kind of go through as people. But there is hope. I really hope that you don't think I was just going to leave you with the gloom and doom without giving you some tips and starting points that you can use to stop imposter syndrome before it happens. The best part of my tips is you're already doing the first one. You're gaining awareness. You're learning about ADHD and what goes along with it in reality versus the myths and stereotypes. To start to learn about your ADHD profile, building your own identity, and truly learning about yourself, that's the first step. Like, what do you truly like to do? What are you truly good at doing? In what areas do you struggle? And where can we use your strengths? And where can we build in scaffolding to help you in the areas you struggle with? Some things that people with ADHD need due to our brain structure, the way we think, and improvements that we need. We can make these types of improvements or changes in our lives. We can build structure and routine into our days, learn about our specific ADHD type, possibly seek a therapist to help you work through some of the difficulty upon falling upon a diagnosis, building your identity, and killing that critical voice. I usually say this first, but treat your ADHD. Whatever that looks like for you, I invite you to look into treating your ADHD, finding a therapist, look into coaching, just find support and community. And the reason I mention getting support is because the tips that follow do not involve, they aren't light, okay? They involve work. They involve deep work that can only be done by you, and it may bring up some heavy emotions. So please take care of yourself and seek the support of a mental health professional, a coach, and or a community of peer support. I am not a medical professional. I am a coach, a teacher, and a podcaster. So some of the things we can do as ADHDers who struggle with imposter syndrome is to become aware of our thoughts and feelings about ourselves. We need to kill that inner critical voice that doesn't always make you feel great. It makes you feel bad, and it makes you second guess yourself. Another thing is building our own identity and learning to love ourselves for who we are, flaws, neurodiversities, and all. To learn how to regulate our emotions and learn about our specific ADHD, the areas that we can build in support so that we can be successful and not feel like a fraud. And a lot of these, again, they take work and they take practice, like building your self-trust, forgiving your past self, and talking to yourself in a kind and compassionate manner. Actually believing your experiences and emotions instead of gaslighting yourself into thinking you're dramatic, too much, or overreacting. To know that you will take care of you no matter what. When doing this transformative work, I've found through research and experience that it is hard work, and it usually requires time, practice, and some support. And having a community is a key factor for me. Finally, embracing your neurodiversity and being authentically you. I am not a master at any of this. I've grown a ton in the last 3 years. So I hope you walked away from this episode with some understanding and a place to start. I hope that you found at least one way to start working with your brain instead of fighting against it. That's all I have for now. Stay authentic, my friends, and we will talk soon.